In the final desperate days of the Second World War, a new kind of fire was unleashed upon the world. It was a power previously unimaginable, born from the deepest secrets of the atom. On the morning of August 6, 1945, the city of Hiroshima, a bustling center of industry and life, was going about its day. Then, at 8:15 in the morning, a single American bomber, the Enola Gay, released its payload. The bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, detonated in a silent, blinding flash. It was as if a second sun had been born, only to consume everything beneath it. In an instant, the city was scorched, flattened, and reduced to a landscape of smoldering ruins and haunting shadows burned onto stone. The world had just entered the atomic age, and it did so with a terrifying display of destructive force. 3 days later, on August 9th, this nightmare repeated itself. The target this time was Nagasaki, a city nestled among hills, known for its historic port and vibrant culture. The bomber, Boxcar, dropped Fat Man, a weapon even more powerful than the one used on Hiroshima. The explosion tore through the Urakami Valley, obliterating homes, schools, and places of worship. The rationale for these bombings was complex and remains debated to this day. The United States government argued that they were necessary to force a swift Japanese surrender, thereby avoiding a costly land invasion that could have resulted in even greater loss of life on both sides. It was a terrible calculus, a decision made in the crucible of a global conflict that had already claimed tens of millions of lives. The immediate results were catastrophic, a level of devastation that really defied comprehension. In Hiroshima, an estimated 140,000 people were killed by the end of the year, succumbing to the initial blast, the inferno that followed, or the insidious effects of radiation poisoning. In Nagasaki, the death toll reached approximately 74,000. These were not just numbers, they were individuals, children on their way to school, parents at work, families gathered at home. For those who survived the initial flash, a new kind of suffering began. They faced horrific burns, mysterious illnesses that would plague them for life, and the profound psychological trauma of witnessing the annihilation of their world and everyone they had ever known. The impact was not confined to Japan. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki fundamentally altered the course of human history and international relations. They brought World War II to an abrupt end, with Japan announcing its surrender on August 15, 1945. But they also ushered in the Cold War, a new era of global tension, defined by the looming threat of nuclear annihilation. The world now lived under the shadow of the mushroom cloud. Two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, would spend the next several decades locked in a perilous arms race, building arsenals capable of destroying civilization many times over. The events of August 1945 served as a permanent, chilling reminder of humanity's capacity for self-destruction. In the aftermath of the atomic bombings, a new word entered the Japanese language, Hibakusha. It translates to explosion-affected people, but it carries a weight of suffering and resilience that is hard to convey. These are the survivors, the men, women, and children who lived through the atomic fire and carried its physical and emotional scars for the rest of their lives. For many years, their stories were shrouded in silence, buried by trauma, fear of discrimination, and the sheer difficulty of putting the unspeakable into words. They bore witness to horrors that the human mind was not meant to process. And for a long time, they bore this burden alone, navigating a world that had moved on from the war they could never forget. Yet, as the years passed, a profound sense of duty began to emerge among the Hibakusha. They realized that if the world was to ever truly understand the meaning of nuclear weapons, it needed to hear their voices. They began to speak out, sharing their personal testimonies with unflinching honesty. They spoke of the black rain that fell from the sky, of searching for loved ones in a sea of rubble, of the strange and terrible sickness that followed. Their accounts are not abstract statistics. They are deeply personal narratives of loss, pain, and survival. Each story is a powerful testament to the human cost of war, transforming the historical event into a collection of individual tragedies that demand our empathy and our attention. Today, as we approach the 80th anniversary of the bombings in 2025, there is a renewed and urgent effort to preserve these vital testimonies. The average age of the Hibakusha now exceeds 86, and there is a palpable sense that time is running out. This urgency has fueled a recent surge in submissions of memoirs and accounts to the memorial halls in both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Between 2024 and 2025, the number of new testimonies collected has dramatically increased, driven by a national call for submissions and the survivors' own desire to ensure their experiences are not lost to history. They are in a race against time, determined to leave behind a record for future generations. These first-hand accounts are more important now than ever. In a world where nuclear threats are once again a part of our geopolitical discourse, the voices of the Hibakusha serve as a critical and vital warning. They cut through the detached language of military strategy and political posturing to remind us of the real-world consequences of these weapons. Their stories are not relics of the past. They are urgent messages for the present and the future. By listening to them, we are forced to confront the true meaning of nuclear war, not as a concept, but as a lived reality of unimaginable suffering. Their legacy is a call to conscience for all of humanity. Every year, as the month of August arrives, the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki pause. They turn their collective attention inward to the past, to honor the memory of those who were lost and to renew a solemn vow. On August 6th in Hiroshima and August 9th in Nagasaki, memorial ceremonies are held, drawing tens of thousands of people from across Japan and around the world. These are not just events of mourning, they are powerful acts of remembrance and advocacy. At the exact moments the bombs detonated, a peace bell is rung and the entire city falls silent. In that shared silence, they remember the dead, reflect on the folly of war, and recommit themselves to the cause of peace. The ceremonies are steeped in powerful symbolism. In Hiroshima, the gathering takes place at the Peace Memorial Park, a tranquil space built on the ashes of what was once the city's busiest commercial and residential district. At its center stands the cenotaph for the A-bomb victims, an arched tomb holding the names of all known victims. An inscription on it reads, "Let all the souls here rest in peace, for we shall not repeat the evil." This is the core message of the city, a promise made to the deceased and to the world. The Prime Minister of Japan, the mayors of the cities, and representatives from countries around the globe attend, offering wreaths and delivering speeches that echo this commitment to a nuclear-free world. These annual remembrances have also become platforms for complex global diplomacy. The list of invited nations itself can reflect current international tensions. In 2024, for instance, a difficult decision was made in Nagasaki not to invite representatives from Israel, due to security concerns related to the ongoing conflict in Gaza, a move that drew protest from the United States and other Western nations. At the same time, Hiroshima did extend an invitation to Israel's ambassador. These differing approaches highlight the immense challenge of maintaining a pure focus on peace and disarmament in a world still fractured by conflict and political division. The ceremonies intended to unite sometimes inadvertently expose the very rifts they seek to heal. Despite these challenges, the fundamental purpose of the memorials endures. It is a day for the children of the city to learn their history, for survivors to share their stories, and for the world to be reminded of the stakes. After the formal ceremonies, as evening falls, a beautiful and poignant ritual takes place. Thousands of paper lanterns, each one carrying a message of peace or a prayer for a lost loved one, are floated down the rivers that flow through the cities. It is a gesture of light against the darkness of the past, a quiet, hopeful procession that carries the spirit of Hiroshima and Nagasaki out into the world, a silent but powerful prayer for a better future. The stories of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are not meant to be relics, confined to the pages of history books. They are living lessons, powerful reminders of why the pursuit of peace is not a naive ideal, but a fundamental necessity for human survival. The two cities reborn from the ashes have transformed themselves into global ambassadors for peace and nuclear disarmament. They stand not as monuments to victimhood, but as symbols of resilience and hope. Their museums, parks, and memorials are not designed to incite hatred or revenge, but to foster understanding and empathy. They invite the world to look upon the consequences of atomic warfare and conclude unequivocally that it must never happen again. This message is carried forward with profound conviction by the Hibakusha. Their tireless advocacy, Their willingness to revisit their deepest traumas for the sake of educating others forms the moral core of the global anti-nuclear movement. When they speak, they are not speaking of politics but of humanity. They ask us to imagine the world through their eyes, to see the flash, to feel the heat, to witness the devastation. Their plea is simple and direct. No other human being should ever have to experience what they endured. Their declining numbers make their mission all the more urgent, passing the torch of memory to a new generation tasked with navigating an increasingly fragile world. Learning from Hiroshima and Nagasaki means recognizing that true security cannot be built upon stockpiles of weapons capable of wiping out civilization. It must be built on dialogue, on mutual respect, and on a shared commitment to resolving conflicts without resorting to violence. These cities teach us that peace is an active process, something that must be nurtured and defended every single day, in every community around the world. It begins with education, with listening to the stories of those who have suffered, and with cultivating a sense of shared responsibility for the future of our planet. It requires us to challenge the logic that says, ultimate weapons provide ultimate safety. Ultimately, the legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is a powerful call to action. It challenges each of us to consider what we can do to build a more peaceful world. The paper lanterns floating down the river, the thousands of colorful paper cranes left as offerings of hope, the solemn ringing of the peace bell. These are all expressions of a deep human yearning for a world free from the shadow of the bomb. The past cannot be changed, but the future is not yet written. By remembering the events of August 1945, by truly hearing the voices of the survivors, we honor the dead and take up our most important responsibility, to choose a different path, one that leads not to annihilation but to our shared survival.